January 28th, 2026, Buddha Dhamma, Section 4, A Worthy Life, compiled by Somdet Prabuddha Gosa Acharya. English name, P.A. Payutto. Chapter 14.2, Part 1, page 1366 to 1377. The Buddha's words on sattva, faith. Chapter 14.2, The Buddha's words on sattva, faith, Part 1. The Kalama Sutra offers a principle for establishing a viewpoint founded on reasoned analysis for all people, regardless of whether they are already hold to a particular theory, a particular view, or a particular teaching or doctrine. In the different editions of the Tipitaka, the Pali Canon, this sutra is variously called Kesa Putra Sutra or Kesa Putri Sutta, the Kesa Putri Sutra or Kesa Mutri Sutra. The sutra following on from this sutra contains similar materials. But in the Kalama Sutra, in the Tipitaka, at one time, the Buddha Gautama was wandering and arrived at the township of Kesapruta in Kosala country in Bharat, which was the residence of Kalama clan. Having heard a good report of the Buddha Gautama, the Kalama's clan approached him, exchanged greetings, and told him the following. There are, Lord Gautama, some ascetics and Brahmins who come to Kesaputra. They explain and elevate their own doctrines, but ridicule, disparage, revile, and vivify the doctrines of others. But then other ascetics and Brahmins come to Kesaputra, and they too explain and elevate their own doctrines, but ridicule, disparage, revile, and vivify the doctrines of others. Vilify. For us, Lord Gautama, there is perplexity and doubt as to which of these ascetics and Brahmins speak satchat, truth, and which speaks falsehood. The Buddha Gautama replied, It is fitting to you to be perplexed, O Kalama's clan. It is fitting for you to be in doubt. Doubt has arisen in you about a perplexing matter. Come, Kalama's clan. Do not believe on the basis of holding on to oral tradition, Anusava. Now, Anusava, the term, can be translated here ever since the initial writing stage of Buddha Dhamma. Before the first edition was printed, the phrase here is do not believe does not clearly convey the meaning of the Pali term, but have not yet found it an adequate replacement. This can also mean do not grasp or do not assume, based on the translation on the version in the Thai Tipitaka. Now, as Ganhita in later editions of the Buddha Dhamma is continued to use the phrase, but added the term do not believe. Here in term phrase as an adequate substitute is found. So basically it's just the gist of it. It's not a verbatim translation. It got lost in translation because the original Pali term cannot be translated into English or any other subsequent language, either Thai or so forth. But do not believe on the basis of building or holding an oral tradition, anutsawa. Do not believe on the basis of holding to the lineage of teaching, para. Do not believe on the basis of hearsay, itikira. Do not believe on the basis of referring to scriptures, pitaka sampatana. Do not believe on the basis of logical reasoning, daka. Do not believe on the basis of inferential reasoning, naya. Do not believe on the basis of rational reflection, akara parivitaka. Do not believe because a teaching accords with personal opinions, diti nichana kanti. Do not believe because a speaker inspires appearance, bhava rupata. Do not believe because you think this ascetic is our teacher, samano no garuti. But when you know for yourselves, these things are unwholesome, these things are harmful, these things are censured by the wise. These things, if undertaken and practiced, lead to detriment and suffering, then you should abandon them. When you know for yourselves, these things are wholesome, these things are harmless, these things are praised by the wise. These things, if undertaken and practiced, lead to well-being and happiness, then you should engage in them. This is what the Buddha Gautama told the Kalamas clan. In the case that people lacked an understanding of and a belief in a particular subject matter, the Buddha Gautama did not urge them to believe. Instead, he encouraged them to consider and judge the matter according to causes and effects that they were able to witness for themselves. In reference to the subject of samsara vata, rebirth, there is a passage at the end at a aforementioned sutra which states, when Kalamas clan, the noble disciple, has thus made his mind free of enmity, free of ill will, uncorrupted and pure, he has won the 4 assurances in this very life. The first assurance that he has won is, if there is another world, pararoka, and if a good and bad deeds bear fruit and yield results, it follows that with the breakup of the body after death, I shall arise in a good destination in a heavenly world. The second assurance he has won is that if there is no other world, and if good and bad deeds do not bear fruit and yield results, still right here in this very life, I live happily, free of enmity and ill will. The third assurance that he has won is thus, suppose evil befalls the evildoer, then as I do not intend evil for anyone, how can suffering afflict me, one who does no evil deed? The fourth assurance he has won is, suppose evil does not befall the evildoer, then right here I see myself purified in both respects. In regard to the people who did not follow a specific doctrine or a religion, the Buddha Gautama would teach kindness and in a neutral, objective manner. He would encourage the listener to contemplate satya, the truth, satya anulak, the truth from an independent standpoint. He would not claim ownership of these teachings, nor would he try to persuade people to show devotion to himself or to convert them to Buddhism. The Buddha Gautama did not refer to himself as a supernatural power as proof of the authenticity of his teachings. but rather he referred to the way that things are and to the facts that people are able to see for themselves with their own wisdom and their own investigation. Moreover, the Buddha Gautama taught the basic principles of practice, the principle of certainty, called Apannakara Kata, in regard to those matters in which general people lack an understanding, whether this be those things referred to as supernatural or even common phenomenon, which are not clearly understood. One should choose a definite and certain course of action rather than get caught up in speculation. A famous example of this principle is found in the Apannaka Jataka. Two separate caravans both needed to carry a heavy load of water in order to cross a desert. The first caravan encountered a goblin, transformed it into the likeness of a man, who wished to deceive and devour them, using phony advice. He told the members of the caravan that he just headed that would find an area abounding with pools and lakes, or an oasis. He thus told them to throw out all their water rather than carry it unnecessarily. The members of the caravan were delighted and poured out all the water from the jars, but they found no water ahead, grew weak, and were devoured by demons. The members of the second caravan similarly shown the spurious evidence of water, but they applied the principle of certainty, reflecting, as long as we have not seen the truth of this matter firsthand, we shall not simply follow the logic or conjecture. What we know for certain is that the water we are now carrying is in our ox carts. When we meet this alleged water source ahead, we will fill up our jars. By applying wisdom and relying on that which is directly discernible, this caravan was able to reach safety. This principle of choosing a definite and certain course of action may also be applied to the Dhamma practice in regard to subtle aspect of the mind, Nama Dhamma, as described in the Apannaka Sutra. At one time, the Buddha Gautama arrived at a Brahmin village of Sala in Bharat. Having heard a good report of the Buddha Gautama, the Brahmin's householders approached him and exchanged greetings. The Buddha Gautama asked them the following: Householders, is there any teacher agreeable to you in whom you have acquired faith supported by reasoned discernment? Akaravati Sata. The householder replied, No, venerable sir. Since, householders, you have not found an agreeable teacher, you may undertake and practice this infallible and certain teaching, Apannaka Dhamma. For when this infallible and certain teaching is correctly undertaken, it will lead you to the welfare and happiness for a long time. What is this infallible and certain teaching? Householders, there are some recluses and Brahmins whose doctrines and views is this: gifts bears no fruit, offerings bear no fruit, sacrifice bears no fruit or results of good and bad actions. No this world, no other world, no mother, no father. Now there are some recluses and Brahmins whose doctrine is directly opposed to that of those recluses and Brahmins. And they thus say, gifts, offerings, and sacrifice bear fruit. There is fruit and result of good and bad actions. What do you think, householders? Don't these recluses and Brahmins hold doctrines directly opposed to each other? Yes, venerable sir. Now, householders, of those recluses and Brahmins whose doctrine and views is this: gifts bears no fruit, Offerings bear no fruit. Sacrifice bears no fruit. It is to be expected that they will forsake these three wholesome states, namely good bodily conduct, good verbal conduct, good mental conduct. Will they undertake and practice these three wholesome states? Three unwholesome states, namely bodily misconduct, verbally misconduct, and mental misconduct. Why is that? Because those recluses and Brahmins do not see the danger, degradation, defilement in unwholesome states, nor will they see the wholesome states, that aspect of purity, the blessing of a renunciation. About this, a wise man considers thus: if there is no other world, then on the dissolution of the body, this person will have made himself safe enough. But if there is another world, then on the dissolution of the body after death, he will reappear in the state of deprivation, in an unhappy destination, in perdition, even in hellish realm. Now, whether or not the word of those recluses and Brahmins is true, let me assume that there is no other world. Still, this person is here and now, censured by the wise as an immoral person, one whose wrong view holds the doctrine of nihilism. But on the other hand, if there is another world, then this person has lost on both counts, since he is censured by the wise here and now, and since on the dissolution of the body after death, he will reappear in the state of deprivation, in an unhappy destination, in perdition, even in hellish realms. Householders, there are some recluses and Brahmins whose doctrine and views is this: there is no final nirota of being, cessation of being. Now, there are some recluses and Brahmins whose doctrine is directly opposed to that of the recluses and Brahmins, and they say thus: there is a final cessation of being. About this, a wise man considers thus: these recluses and Brahmins hold the doctrine in view, there is no final cessation of being, but that has not been seen by me. These other recluses and Brahmins hold the doctrine in view, there is a final cessation of being, but that has not yet been known by me. If without knowing and seeing, I were to take one side and declare, oh, this is true, anything else is wrong, that would not be fitting for me. Now, as the recluses and Brahmins who hold the doctrine in view, there is no final cessation of being. If their word is true, then it is certainly still possible that I might reappear after death. Among the gods of the immaterial realms who consist of perception, but as the recluses and Brahmins who hold the doctrine in view, there is a final cessation of being. If their word is true, then it is possible that I might here and now attain final nibbita, nibbana, or nirvana. However, the view of those recluses and Brahmins who hold the doctrine in view, there is no final cessation of being. It's close to attachment, close to bondage, close to indulgence, close to infatuation, close to clinging. But the view of those recluses and Brahmins who hold the doctrine in view, there is final cessation of being. It's close to non-attachment, close to bondage, close to non-indulgent, who is infatuation, close to non-clinging. After reflecting thus, he practiced the way to disenchantment and dispassion towards being, to true cessation of beings. The following teaching by the Buddha Gautama reveals how knowledge still based on sattva, faith, and how logic remains faulty, still prone to error, and it's not true realization of the truth. There are 5 things, bharatavacha, that may turn out in 2 different ways here now. First, sattva, faith, ruchi, approval, anutsava, transmitted knowledge, oral tradition, akara parivitaka, reason thinking, reason analysis, Ditti anachanakanti, conformity to personal views, includes the act of reflection. Now, something may be fully accepted out of faith, yet it may be empty and false. But something else may not be fully accepted out of faith, yet it may be factual, true, and unfailing. Again, something may be fully approved of and agreeable, yet it may be empty and false. But something else that may not be fully approved of and agreeable, yet it may be factual and true and unfailing. Again, something may be passed down by oral tradition, anutsawa, yet it may be empty and false. But something else may not be passed down by tradition, yet it may be factual, true, and unfailing. Again, something may be well taught over, yet it may be empty and false. But something else may not be resemblable that which has been thought over, yet it may be factual and true and unfailing. Again, something may be well reflected upon as conforming to personal views and belief, yet it may be empty and false. But something else may not be resemblable that which has been reflected upon, yet it may be factual and true and unfailing. In the following sutra, the Buddha Gautama goes on to reveal a way of protecting or safeguarding the truth, Satcha Anuracha, the means to conduct oneself in relation to personal views and beliefs, and the way to respond to the views and beliefs of others. It is not proper for the wise man who protects truth to come to the definite conclusion, only this is true, anything else is wrong. If a person has faith, he protects truth when he says, my faith is thus, but he does not yet come to the definite conclusion, only this is true. Everything else is false. In this way, there is the protection of truth. In this way, he protects truth. In this way, we describe the protection of truth, but as yet there is no realization of truth. If a person approves of something, if he has received transmission of knowledge, if he applies reasoned thinking, if he gains a reflective acceptance of personal view, he protects truth. When he says, I have an agreeable view thus, I have received a transmission of thus, I have considered with reason thus, my reflective acceptance of a view is thus, but he does not yet come to the definite conclusion. Only this is true. Everything else is false. In this way, there is the protection of truth. In this way, he protects truth. In this way, we describe the protection of truth, but as yet there is no realization of truth. The Buddha Gautama clarifies the proper conduct in another sutra. On one occasion, the bhikkhus, the monks, were discussing other people's that praise and criticism of the Buddha's teaching. And the Buddha Gautama explained it thus. Bhikkhu, monks, if anyone should speak in disparagement of me, of the Dhamma, the eternal law, or of the community of monks, the Sangha, you should not be angry. You should not be resentful or upset on that account. If you were to be angry or displeased at such disparagement, there would only be danger to you. If others disparage me, the eternal law, the Dhamma, Satana, or the community of monks, the Sangha, you are angry or displeased. Can you recognize whether what they say is right or not? No, my Lord Gautama. If others falsely disparage me, the Dhamma, the eternal law, or the community of monks, the Sangha, then you must explain what is incorrect, saying, for this reason that is incorrect, for this that is false. That is not our way. That is not found amongst us. That's how you should respond. monks, bhikkhus, if others should speak in praise of me, of the Dhamma, the eternal law, of the community of monks, the Sangha, you should not, on that account, be pleased. You should not be happy or elated. If you were to be pleased or elated at such praise, that would only be a danger to you. If others rightly praise me, praise the Dhamma, the eternal law, praise the community of monks, the Sangha, you should acknowledge what is true. You should say, for this reason, this is correct. For this reason, that is right. This is our way. That is found among us. That's how you should respond. In the previous sutra on safeguards of truth, Satya Anurag, the Buddha Gautama goes on to describe the way of samatha, practice for realizing the truth, Satya Anupati, and for the arriving at the truth, Satya Nupati, which includes the arising of sattha, faith. This description explains both the importance and the limitations of sattha, faith. But in what way, Master Gautama, is there the realization of Satya Anula, the realization of truth? In what way is a person known as who has realized the truth? Here, a bhikkhu, a monk, may be living in dependence on some village or town. Then a householder or a householder's son goes to him and examines him in regard to the three kinds of states. In regard to the states based on greed, in the regards of states based on hate, in the regard based states on delusion. Are there in this vulnerable ones any state based on greed, such that which is mind obsessed by those states? While not knowing, he might say, I know. While not seeing, he might say, I see. Or he might urge others to act in a way that would lead to their harm and suffering for a long time. As he examines him, he comes to know there are no such states in this vulnerable one based on such greed, such that, with his mind obsessed of those states, while not knowing, he might say, I know. Or while not seeing, he might say, I see. He might urge others to act in an unprofitable way that would lead to their harm and suffering for a long time. Moreover, the bodily behavior and the verbal behavior of this vulnerable one is not of those afflicted by greed. And the Dhamma that this vulnerable one teaches is profound, hard to see, hard to penetrate, peaceful and sublime, unattainable by mere reasoning, subtle to be experienced by the wise. This Dharma cannot easily be taught by one afflicted by greed. When he has examined him and seen that he is purified from states of greed, he next examines him in regards to the state based on hate, in regards to the state based on delusion. When he has examined him and seen that he is purified from all states on delusion, then he places faith in him. Filled with faith, he visits him and associates with him. Having approached him, he gives ear. When he gives ear, he hears the Dharma. Having heard the Dharma, he memorizes it, examines the meaning of the teaching he has memorized. When he examines their meaning, he gains an acceptance of those teachings based on his investigation. When he has gained a reflective acceptance of those teachings, enthusiasm springs up. When enthusiasm has sprung up, he has determination. Having determination, he scrutinizes. Having scrutinized, he strives. Resolutely striving, he realizes within himself the ultimate truth and sees it by penetrating it with wisdom. In this way, there is a realization of truth. In this way, one realizes the truth. In this way, we describe the awakening to truth, Satchanupota. But as yet there is no final arrival at truth. But in what way is there the final arrival of truth? In what way does one finally arrive at that truth? The final arrival at truth, Satchanupati, lies in the repetition, development, and cultivation of those things. In this way, there is a final arrival at truth. In this way, one finally arrives at truth. I'm going to leave off there at in the middle of page 1377, 14.2, part 1, the end of part 1.